Kiki Classic Rock.
Just keep going, Roger. I want you to just keep going.
The Energizer Bunny.
Roger and Linda Earl of Foghat. I can't even believe I have both of you here, which is so exciting. I am just grateful that you both were able to do this with us.
I'm really glad that Linda's here because she's my memory.
Good luck.
Who are you?
I don't know. Who are you?
I'm the drummer.
I know you. Oh, you're nice. You want to go home with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, we're getting a hookup here. That's great. So 8 gold records, 1 platinum, 1 double platinum record later, and Roger, 51 years after that. I mean, I'm sure in the beginning you were focused on just having a great time at that moment in time, but what about today? What are you focused on today?
Having a great time. I have a great time anywhere. Actually, one of my brother-in-laws said I'd probably have a good time in a box. I said, I'll find out one day.
Oh, jeez. No.
Yeah, no, I love what I do. I'm one of those fortunate few in this world that, gets to earn a decent living at something I really enjoy doing. And the band, it's great, even though we have some relatively new members. Been in the band, 25 years, Brian? Yeah, he's a new kid. No, I love playing. We're working on a new album already. We've got about 8 sort of roughs done, and in November we're going down for another 3 weeks around our studio, and hopefully I can get most of the basic tracks down. So yeah, life is fun.
So the new music, when do you think that'll be released?
Talk to my manager.
Linda?
Hopefully in the spring.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the spring. It's a work in progress, but.
And how long have you guys been working on that then?
This new record?
Yep.
Since the beginning of the year, actually.
Yeah, since the beginning of the year, since Scott joined.
Yeah, we had some ideas. We've got about 8 sort of rough ideas done, and then we've got about another 22 rough ideas that we work out on the road. Then we have to decipher which goes where. Now that's not the right song. I think, but no, it's fun. I love making music.
Well, when do your best ideas come? Do they come on the bus? Do they come in the car? Where do you get your best ideas from?
A lot of things start when we do sound checks. We'll just start jamming. And then somebody will say, did you record that? And of course our sound engineer is sort of somewhere else. But Brian is the bright one. He often has a phone and goes, click.
Or I record it, darling, when I'm at the show. Right. Or
it's a real manager.
Now, Linda, do you come up with a lot of ideas as well for the band?
We talk about things, like we'll that's our bedtime chatter, we sit and just, so honey, what's this set
really?
going to be
I
like?
don't remember that part.
That's why Linda remembers.
I've been around for 46 years. I started working with Foghat in 76, so I come up with ideas too. We talk about things, but it's his decision on everything, it's his band, but we...
1, 2, 3, 4, he says with an element of surprise.
But do you ever get mad if he doesn't take one of your ideas?
No.
Never?
I have to tell you, we've been friends for 46 years. We've been together 25 years this month, and we've been married 17 years. And I could probably count on one hand...
Or less,
the amount of times that we've ever argued or disagreed, really. And any time we've ever had an argument, it's like, oh, I'm sorry.
And it's usually because I'm somewhat hearing challenged. Linda?
Somewhat.
And we don't quite hear things. So, no, actually we get on great. I married my best friend.
That's awesome. She's your best friend.
Yeah, and we talked about this as well. I mean, this is my 3rd time being married. Both my first wives have forgiven me because of Linda.
And I'm friends with both of them.
We're adults.
I was at their wedding. He was at my wedding. We've been friends.
And Linda has looked after the children at various times or another. She's the wicked stepmother. And
I like that title. I like being the wicked stepmother.
Yeah, you seem really wicked.
I like it.
So, I don't think I was ever really musicians, or maybe it's me, but I was always very selfish about music. Came first, playing came first. It wasn't I didn't care about people or I don't love my children or anything, but it's like if you're playing or you've got to play or you've got to do this or go away, that always came first ever since I was 12 years old when I started sort of playing drums. It was musicians are notorious for being selfish and that's all they want to do. But I think I'm not really selfish, it's just that I enjoy my job.
Well, I think, I think it helps that we work together, that we're in business together too, because he doesn't do what I do and I don't do what he does, but we also travel together and we spend time. It would be a whole different scenario if he was gone all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a whole different thing for his two ex-wives too. It was very different. He was gone for months at a time and they had kids and stuff, so it's a different scenario. But I told, Deb will like this story. I was at their wedding. I'm good friends with Deb, his second wife, and he had cooked dinner. They came over, and he cooked dinner, and after dinner, he's always cooked. He cleaned the table, cleared the table, and he started doing the dishes, and she went, I said, Deb, I had to get him to practice, and get it right before I was going to have him. He had to get it right with you two,
Seriously? So he didn't do this before
He used to cook.
but didn't clean up?
No.
Well, no, it's because, when I was rich and famous and somebody would come in twice a week to clean the house and they go, oh, God, it's horrible. Roger, what have you done? I had a party last week.
Right.
Last week you had a party. Oh my
Well, it
God.
lasted a week.
That is
Last
so...
time you were here,
That was the 70s.
The house was nice and clean, so we started having a party again.
So I find it interesting, though, that you both came into, well, you were in each other's lives for a really long time anyway, but at this new stage of your life, it's interesting how now you, like you said, his ex-wives didn't work with him, but you work with him. So your relationship is where it is supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you're able to work together, you're able to cohabitate together.
We hold hands still.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
I love
No, we're real. It's like, we're both very lucky.
Yeah.
It's like, it surprises me sometimes, but we've always liked each other. Roger and I were always friends. We always liked each other. And by the time we got together, we were both going through some hard times and everything, but we were always friends first, And I always liked Roger. Never in a million years, ever in the 70s would I have
You wouldn't have
ever
touched me with a
I would
10-foot
have touched
pole.
him with a 10-foot pole.
Really? All
Back in the
right, why is that?
He was a rock star. He was Mr. I wasn't into rock stars, into musicians. I was hang gliding and doing stuff, stuff.
Like you still do now.
Yeah. But I wasn't, I wouldn't have touched him with a 10-foot pole back then.
Did you know Roger back in 71, 72?
No, I met him in 76. I started working for Foghat in August of 76.
But when was the first time you saw me?
Oh, I saw Savoy Brown in 1969 at the Fillmore.
Really?
Oh, I love Savoy Brown. In fact, when I started working for them, I had the playbill.
Oh my gosh.
It was great. Yeah, no, I was a big Savoy Brown fan.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's kind of funny that we
And then
ended
you
up...
joined the Foghat organization. You said Foghat.
Right. But we were always friends. We were always friends. In fact, when I got fired, I went over to Roger's house and...
I was in bed.
He was in bed. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Was it still 1972?
And he said, and he had a bottle of champagne. He said, "You have some
I had
champagne."
a fridge by the bed.
Yeah.
I said, come here. Did he fire you? What a fucking idiot.
we were always friends. There was never anything romantic. We were just friends for years.
Yeah. Yeah, you just weren't touching him with that 10-foot pole
No.
either.
In fact, I remember at the time, I know Craig wasn't happy about it. I know Dave wasn't happy about it.
About what?
You being fired by our ex-manager. What an ass.
I wanted to get fired at that point. I did.
So Roger, going back to 1972, you guys only did 19 public appearances, and then the following year in 73, you did 131 shows, public shows that I could find out about. So you 10 times your touring schedule in 1 year. What was that like for you, 27 years old? So you go from a few shows to a lot of shows.
Well, initially, when we first, we left Savoy Brown in the end of 1970, beginning of 71, and our manager of Savoy Brown, we were all living in England at the time, stopped us from working. He blackballed us. I've got no idea why, because us leaving, the band was fine with Kim Simmons. In fact, we stayed and did some recording with him and said, we'll stay until you've got a new band, and there was never a problem. But his manager was, anyway, our agency was Chrysalis Agency, Terry Ellis and Chris Wright. And I went to see them and said, look, we would like to get some, do some dates. The band's been rehearsing. And they said, we can't. Harry has told us that if we book you, he'll take Savoy Brown and Chicken Shack, which were two of the biggest bands in England, away from the agency. So, a real scumbag, excuse me. He's no longer with us now. I'm being horrible.
So what was it like to go from doing 22 shows to 131?
I thought we did a lot more than that, actually. So we did over 200. But,
well, you know what? You probably did, but again, in public records, we can only see what we can see. So you may have done a bunch of private gigs or,
Yeah, when we first came here, we play everywhere. At bat mitzvahs, bar mitzvahs, people's backyards, anywhere and everywhere. In fact, our first gig was Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And we got there, we were playing for in the park, the town had put on the show, and we were getting $1,350, I think. But we couldn't take the money because we were, our visas hadn't come through, H2 visas. But we played anyway, and which was fine. And we got the money about 2 weeks later, they sent it. People in the Midwest, they are the very best.
Well, at least you got paid.
Yeah, no, we did.
I mean,
Surprisingly, yeah, 2 weeks
we always
later.
got paid. We always told my road manager, look, first thing, get the money first. Secondly, don't forget to get the money. Thirdly, refer to number one.
well, besides that gig, besides the Oshkosh gig, did you ever have a problem getting paid? Because there are so many stories from the 70s and the 80s about bands not getting paid, getting ripped off by their managers. Not you.
Oh,
but,
yeah. The manager ripped us off, yeah. But I remember one day I was doing in the 80s somewhere. We were playing in a club in Memphis. There was a band called the Radiators on the show as well, and we got there and we said that we played after the Radiators, and the club owner decided that we weren't going to get paid. So I had the contracts and I said, well, look, he said, well, you're not paying, and so a slight discussion ensued, and then he picked up his gun and pointed it at me. And I think I said, "F you."
Good.
And,
did he didn't?
And I called the police. This is in Memphis. They came here and they said, well, if you cause any trouble, we're going to arrest you. And I said, and I showed them the contract. And I said, he won't pay us. We played. We And he said, well, we're going to arrest you if you have caused any trouble. So then we weren't allowed to get our equipment out of the club. He locked the doors.
Oh my gosh.
And somebody else had a gun and pointed it at our bass player, who also said, you.
Jeff.
That was Jeff. And so we're parked outside in the bus and going, we're supposed to leave to go to another show. But about 8 o'clock in the morning, the cleaners came in. They opened the doors and we said, is it okay if we get our equipment out? And they said,
sure.
Whatever you want to do. So that was it. That was in most of the time, though. there's never been a problem. I just remember that one because it was kind of strange, people pointing a gun at you.
Yeah.
You.
We didn't get paid at that one show down in North Carolina. They didn't pay us, remember? They bounced a check.
So what do you do when that happened? Were you the manager at the time?
Yeah, it was. It was the only time it's happened since I've been managing them. They bounced it. It was a outdoor bike festival. The weather wasn't good and stuff, and our tour manager at the time didn't get paid before the show, but all the other bands did. So after the show, they just wrote out a check, and we don't usually take handwritten checks, and it bounced. They wouldn't make good on it. I was pretty pissed off. Our agency was going after them. They called, but do you plan on paying this? No. And they said the only way I could have gotten paid is if I flew down there, went to small claims court, and it just wasn't worth it. By the time I flew there, rented a car, got a hotel, went to small claims court, we just never got paid.
That is
That's about it.
horrible.
That was the only time. That was in 22 years I've been managing them. It's once happened.
Yeah,
They were really, really obnoxious.
So did you ever go back to that bike fest?
Oh no.
But it's never really a problem.
Once.
Once and only once.
Cecilia. Don't mess it.
Yeah, I know. That is insane. So Roger, about a year before Foghat came to be, another group was making their own way and their own path with one of the greatest songs to kick off the 1970s. Your brother Colin was part of Mungo Jerry, and they released their '1 hit in the summertime. Can you sing just a little bit?
That was it. Actually, the lead singer in Mungo Jerry was the lead singer in the first band I was in.
Come on.
No, we went to the same school together. He was at the next school over, but we were friends. And I was best friends with the bass player and the other guitar player. And I used to go and see them all the time. And then they had a drummer, and it didn't work out. So then I got asked to join the band. But Ray Dorset was, went on to become huge. My friend Dave joined a band in Europe. The other guy did something else, but and Colin played piano with them, and they had I think 10 top 10 singles in Europe. They only had one over here, but it was interesting. We crossed paths, and at the time we were putting Foghat together, and they were sort of monsters all over the place. And Colin came and played on the first album, played on Maybelline, a couple of other tunes. Actually, our first album, we had 3 or 4 different people helping us out. Todd Rundgren played on some stuff. Dave Edmonds played on some stuff.
Wow.
So we needed a helping hand.
Well, you got some good ones.
Yeah.
You really did.
Yeah, it was great having Colin around. I love my brother.
I mean, how cool was that, though? What were the conversations like? Because Colin's taking off, Mungo Jerry is, worldwide, and then Foghat the following year is taking off. What were those conversations between the both of you like at that time?
Long distance. It was, it wasn't interesting. I think our parents were really happy for us. They were. Our mother and father they were really. We had great parents. There was always music in our house. My father also played piano, but that wasn't his main job. But there was always music. We always had the radio. We had a Grundig tape player. We'd tape stuff. Anytime there was any music on the television, that would come first in the house. So, and we were both encouraged anytime, and it came to anything we wanted to do. We weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination. We never went hungry. I remember when I was about 11 or 12, and I talked to my father, and I said, "Dad, I want to get a motorbike." And he said, "Well, I'm not going to help you with that, son." I said, "Well, you had one." It was different. So, all right, I want to play drums. I want to get a drum kit. So he said, "I have a friend who's a teacher." So that's where that started. And I got my first drum kit when I was 15. Dad signed it on the dotted line, but I had already saved up half the money. So he said, "Well, you got to make the payments, son," which I did.
Very cool.
But, it was. some people tell me stories about their relationship with their parents, and I go, sounds horrible.
Well, it's true. Like, sometimes parents are supportive of this industry.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not. So you got lucky.
No, I don't think I appreciated it at the time. And I know I upset my mother all the time, turning up late or not turning up at all, and disappearing for days on end. But
you were the apple of her eye.
I think most, certainly musicians anyway, upset their parents. I mean, if you haven't really upset your parents, I mean, you haven't done it properly, have you? I mean, you're going to upset your parents.
True. And then when it happened to you, how was that?
Actually, my parents came over in 1977. It was my father's 60th birthday, and I had more money than sense. Hold on a second. If I had a dime...
That's the way I handle the money.
I'd have more money than sense. Anyway, we were doing this show in New York, at the New York Palladium. It was Foghat's Tribute to the Blues. We were playing, basically we were a house band and backing up Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, Paul Butterfield, Johnny Winter,
wow.
Eddie Bluesman Kirkland,
Honey Boy Edwards, Pine Top Perkins,
Willie Big Eye Smith,
Paul Butterfield.
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
So Mum and Dad come over. I got them a hotel in Park Lane, and they were over for a week, and it was. And I remember this. We were backstage at one point with all the artists and stuff, and Muddy Waters, who I mean, they knew who all these artists were because I would play their records when I was a kid. So I introduced Mum and Dad to Muddy Waters. Mum and Dad, this is Muddy Waters, Mum and Dad. And they shook his hand, and it's like there's the little boy sort of hanging out and playing with his heroes. Yeah, it was cool. That was a highlight.
That had to be just amazing. Now, were
was.
you there?
Yeah, I was the production coordinator. I arranged a lot of that show, yeah.
So thinking back to that moment, though, and it must be cool for you, too, to say you were there.
Tell a story about John Lee.
We had all of our normal stuff backstage, our hospitality and everything. We used to have Norwegian crown sardines and mustard sauce and all this fancy
champagne
stuff. And I asked Mr. Hooker, "Can I get you something?" He's looking at us, "Baby, all I want's a bologna sandwich." I said, "Okay, Mr. I'm sorry. Well, we didn't have any bologna." I said, "Okay, I'll send out for you. I don't want one of them big bologna sandwiches. I just want little bologna sandwiches, white bread." I said, "Okay, I will get." So I sent out. We got him a bologna sandwich. White bread with mustard.
Isn't that crazy? You have all of this other fancy stuff, and he just wanted a bologna sandwich.
You know what? It was a highlight for me too. In fact, interesting story. It was a kind of a bone of contention for me because we did this great show and we filmed it, and it was 4 hours. And recorded it. It was 4 hours. And then the guy who produced it, David Silver, went out to LA and he was editing it and everything. And then he calls me up one day. I was the office manager at the time. And he says, there's a festival in Europe, in Cannes, the month before the film festival. It's called the MIP TV Festival, and we could bring it out there, and we could sell it. So I asked my boss at the time, our manager, and they agreed that we could go. So I go to Cannes with this film. We had 52 minutes of it that they put on Don Kirshner's rock concert at the time. Right?
How
so
cool.
We go and we're showing this film, and we had our booth, and it was interesting because, like for instance, some of the countries, they're state-owned TV, and so the TV minister from Kuwait comes to see the show, and they were blues fans. Like, there's blues fans all over the world, right? And Eddie Kirkland, his performance, he gets down on stage and he's got his guitar behind him and he's humping the stage, It's a great performance. But this poor guy turned white. He said, "We cannot show the youth of our countries." I said, "Well, we can edit that out for you, So anyway, long story short, I worked my tail off. We had all these people interested in buying the blues show. I come back to the States I was 26 at the time. Our lawyer calls me one day. He says, "Linda, do you have sync licenses for all of these?" I said, "What's a sync license?"
Yeah, what is a sync
I'm 26 years old. I had no idea what a sync license was. It's a synchronization license. You have to have a license between the artist who's performing a song. So now I start getting in touch with all of these artists to get sync licenses.
Oh my
and I worked on it for, I'd say, about 3 or 4 months. And then one day my boss came into the office and he said, "The blues show, it's dead. It's history. It's gone. Forget it. It's dead." So they canned the whole project, which eventually I got fired because I was very upset over that. Anyway, we just found it.
Come on. Like,
I've been trying.
Recently?
Yeah,
I
literally.
have been trying to find these because Bearsville sold everything to Rhino Records several years ago, and this video and all these recordings are sitting in a basement somewhere at Warner Brothers. And I finally was talking to someone a couple weeks ago. I had a Zoom meeting, and I'm telling him the story, and he found it.
Come on. All right, so what year was that?
77, September 30th, 1977.
Who filmed it?
Mobile unit.
Mobile Unit recorded it. I don't remember who filmed it, but the film is 45 years old at this point. The video would probably be impossible for me to put out at this point because it's weird to say this, but out of the 20-something people on stage, he's the only one still alive.
Am I?
Yeah. Jason,
Thank you. If you had something to do with it. If you didn't, thank you anyway.
Jason Pevert and I were talking about that the other day, and we realized everyone on that stage is gone.
But all the more reason that would be amazing to put it out.
I wouldn't be able to get the sync licenses.
To get
now,
the licenses.
I would have to deal with the estates. But the audio we could put out.
That would be...
Because then I just pay, like mechanicals. But
Right.
But anyway, they found it.
But that's so cool for you, though, to be able to sit back.
We've been wanting to.
And it came about because of the 1973 live performance.
Right. They found, there's a couple of, I can't really talk, but they found a couple of tapes from New Orleans from 73 that they're probably going to be releasing.
Wow.
So we had to listen to that. But it's interesting, I mean, it's just been, somebody said that I have a vendetta about the blues show. I do.
Well, yeah, a lot went on.
Well, I worked really hard on it. We all did, and it was and it's not about money.
Right, absolutely.
People should see. There's actually a record company in Holland put out a bootleg of it, so you can see a lot of it on YouTube. You can see the finale they do. "I Just Want to Make Love to You," and Muddy Waters is orchestrating the whole thing, and everybody's singing, a few lines from it. So it's pretty cool.
The cool thing maybe to do is to film yourselves doing a watch party, watching the video when you see it for the first time, because you can do that. You can film yourself in your reactions. I would love to see that.
Watching it. Watching what's already been out there, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that would be neat.
That would be cool. Well, we've posted those songs on social media and everything from what they put out, so, but it was exciting that they just found like all the tapes and audio and video and
That's
everything.
neat.
So that's the first step. That just came about.
It was filmed, wasn't it? Is it filmed?
Yeah, it was filmed.
As opposed to video,
1977, it was filmed, yeah.
Now, in 2016, at the Lost Highway Festival in San Bernardino, Taylor Hawkins banged on your drum set during Slow Ride. Had you worked with Taylor ever before that?
No, but apparently the reason we actually got on that show is because Taylor and I guess Dave Grohl were fans of Foghat because they were mostly younger bands, weren't they?
They were all younger bands. He wanted us, and
that's not hard to do.
But he was upset that we only had 45 minutes set, but he's the one that wanted us on the show.
Wow.
He was really cool.
Yeah, I got to talk to him before we went on. I said, look, come up and play with me on the end of Soul Ride. As soon as it starts to pick up, and come up and bang the floor toms and cymbals and stuff. He said, no, it's all right, I don't want to do that. I said, no, come on. He said, no. So we get to the part in the song, and I'm looking at him. He's standing over on the side of the stage, hanging out with you. And so I throw him a drumstick, and he catches it. And then I said, I've only got one. And he came on and
Help me.
You know what was so sad about losing him was I was so looking forward to seeing him from time to time. The man was just beautiful. He was really happy and like he had this wonderful sort of positive like thing about him. He didn't never stop smiling, and it was great playing with him. It was just a tragedy losing him. And I can't imagine how Dave Grohl and the rest of the Foo Fighters are handling it, you know, because it's just sad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a little funny side to that evening, though. The band had 45 minutes, and we're very professional about it. If we have 45 minutes, they do 44. So the guy that was was speaking, the radio was talking and talking, so they went on 10 minutes late. So now they're playing I Just Want to Make Love to You just before, and the stage manager comes over, he's all uptight, he goes, they're going to go over, I said, they're not going to go over. I said, but you didn't get your guy off stage in time. You know, it was a lot of bands. So they start playing Slow Ride, and he says, I said, I tell you what. I said, listen, I feel your pain. Pull the plug. How can I pull the plug? I said, pull the plug, it's okay. So about 5 minutes later, he comes back, and he's like all uptight. He was like, and I said, listen, seriously, I feel your pain. I'm their manager. I'm giving you permission. Pull the plug. And he goes walking away. And then Taylor Hawkins gets up and starts playing. I went to him, pull the plug.
Yeah, how did that go over? I mean, oh my.
Then afterwards, I said to the promoter, I said, look, I apologize. He said, for what? I said, your stage. He said, no, that guy's
I can't even imagine what you've had to deal with over the years, but you're
take
so
a deep
cool.
breath.
Well, and you're just so cool how you deal with people. So I gotta say, you're good.
Plug. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Now Taylor's on stage. Go ahead.
Pull the plug.
Yeah, right. It's just crazy. But now, the bands that you have all toured with, Kiss, Aerosmith, Peter Frampton, who's your favorite, or who actually blew you away when you saw them play live?
There's probably 2 or 3 bands. More recent times, you know, we've done shows like with Cheap Trick, ZZ Top, George Thorogood, who I am officially the maracas player in that band when I turn up.
Congratulations.
Paul
I have a maracas endorsement. But prior to that, back in the 70s and stuff, Humble Pie.
Jay Giles.
Who?
Jay Giles.
Jay Giles' band were probably one of the best bands that ever hit the stage. Jay Giles and Humble Pie, I think, were my favourites, just because they were just so much fun to play with. I mean, we would hang out, you know, get drunk and stoned after the show.
Of course,
It was just fun, and particularly with Stevie Marriott, you know, we would hang out and play music to the early hours of the morning. It was when we had boom boxes back then, and Stevie would open up a drawer in his in the hotel room, and he put the boombox in there because it would be loud.
I was waiting for this. I didn't know what was going to come out of the drawer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was one time, right at the very beginning, probably 73, we were doing shows with Humble Pie, and they were really hot. And we were also doing shows with Jay Giles, but their crew, for some reason, were giving us a hard time about lights, staging, just, you know, you can't use this, you can't do this, you can't do that. I think it was our manager went over and talked to Stevie and said, look, you could help us out here, you know, we're having a problem with your crew. And the band, and especially myself and Lamson Dave had been tight with Stevie. He came out on stage, he was only like 5 foot nothing, and he said, stop with Foghat and give Foghat wherever the Foghat wants, and walked off. After that, it was, we had no more problems. Yeah, I love Stevie Marriott. And Jay Giles were fantastic to play with as well. They're like ultimate professionals. Again, a really cool bunch, always friendly. In fact, I remember the first time we came to the States, but it was with Savoy Brown, I think. Yeah, Savoy Brown. And we played in Boston, and we opened up for Jay Giles, and Buddy Guy was headlining. We played at the, what was the place? Paradise? No, I'll remember it in a minute. Anyway, and the next day, Jay and Peter Wolf came over to our hotel, and they took us out buying records. Good people, really great band.
Now, how about you, Linda? What band blew you away that you were all able to work with?
I have to say, ZZ Top, Bad Company, George, Thorogood. Peter, well, we did that tour with Peter Frampton in '77 when Frampton Comes Alive came out. So we called it the Gravy Tour, remember?
I didn't call it that.
We called it
Okay, why was it the Gravy Tour?
Well, it was like 3 shows and a whole lot of money. It was like Soldiers Field, there was... It was
$100,000 a night. I mean, prior to that, it was considerably less.
So now going back to money, a little bit money talk here. What was your first paycheck and your first paycheck? Do you remember what they were and compared to what your biggest paycheck was? And what did you do with it?
My biggest I was a woman in the music business. Are you kidding? In the 70s, I made shit. Really? Oh, yeah. I think I was making $200 a week, and then the crew, they all got a raise of $100 extra per paycheck, and I got an extra 50 cents an hour or something like that. I was like, really? Yeah.
Before we go over to you, Roger, though, so what made you stick with it then?
Music. Their talent. I really liked the guys. I mean, I liked their music. And then when I left them, I managed Rod Price when he left. But I really loved the way he played. I just appreciated what they have to put into it to get to that level, to be able to play that way. And I admired that, and I guess that's what made me stick to it, because it certainly wasn't money.
Because easily you could have said, well, how did you pay the bills then?
Well, I paid the bill. Well, I made enough. I had a small apartment. It's like I didn't live high on the hog or anything. I had a small apartment. I just lived within your means. Within my means. I didn't live like they did.
Because you were, but that had to be a little difficult though, because you were in the rock star life, right?
I didn't really give a shit about that.
Yeah, you didn't care about it. Okay.
I traveled.
Linda was cool.
Yeah, I really never cared that much about having the money and all those trappings and everything, really,
That is awesome though, Linda, because
I still don't, obviously, because I'm a manager,
But it's just cool that you didn't walk away from it because of the money. Music made you stay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I did leave for a while, I got married and I got into the computer business for a while, because computers also don't have hissy fits or anything.
Well, sometimes they do.
When they do
but
break
when they
down,
do, I can fix it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, after managing Rod, I did get out of the music business for a while.
But so, Roger, going back to you, your first paycheck compared to your largest paycheck, and what did you do with that big, ginormous paycheck?
I got with Foghat. We just decided to move over here. It was probably under 73. I got a check for $3,000. Prior to that, we were getting, I don't know, $100 a week or something, really to get by, and things were starting to go really well. $3,000, I'm like, whoa. Now I'm living upstate New York, but Rod and I had bought a house on Long Island in Shoreham. We go to the local deli, and on the local deli there was this sign, 1967 427 convertible Corvette with tri-power, 4-speed of course.
Of course.
And I went, because I've been a car fan ever since I was, so I knew what it was, and I said, and it's $3,300. I said, would you take $3,000? He said, no. So I said, all right. So we went out for a drive in it. It had, 30,000 miles on it, so it was in really good shape, original tires. Took it out for a drive, and then come back, and I said, would you take $3,000 for it? He said, no. So our manager's wife was the assistant manager at a bank, and she said, well, first of all, Roger, you have to put the check in the bank. I said, oh, all right. And she said, you know, you're going to need insurance, and also if anything goes wrong with the car. And what was the price? $3,300. You'll need another $300 anyway. So I put the check in the bank. I got a loan for $1,500. Now I'm rolling in it, $4,500. So
big money back then.
Yeah, I go back to the deli out in Shoreham, and I say, can we take the Corvette for another drive? He said, yeah, it's $3,300. Yeah, I know. And came back and wrote him out a check for $3,300, and I had this fabulous car, something I'd read about when I was a kid in England and stuff like that. And Rob Price bought a Volkswagen with his. Yes, he put a black Volkswagen with a red interior.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that was before the Mercedes.
I had a Corvette.
Right.
And that was my daily driver, wind, rain, sleet or snow. Snow was a little bit dangerous.
How long did you have that car for?
It had 33,000 miles. I sold it when it had 96,000 because I had 4 cars and a 2-car garage.
Wow. Oh my God.
And so it had to go. But the sale was interesting because I sold it to a guy from North Carolina. I'd advertised it, and he was talking to me. He came up, and it was in a friend's garage, and he crawled underneath and said, okay. And then we went out for a drive, and talking about cars. And he said, "Put your hand down there." And I'm sitting up the front. He said, well, in the side of his, he was driving an SUV, and I pull out a gun, and I go.
Well, you and guns, Roger. I don't know.
He said, "Well, coming into New York City, I didn't know I was going to need it." And I just put it back.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I sold it for $8,500 or $9,000, probably worth about $250,000 now.
Oh my God.
It's okay.
Yeah, it is.
The whole thing about life is experience, and I had 427 tri-power 4-speed Corvette.
Yeah.
I mean,
And a Lamborghini Miura and a Jensen Interceptor, my favorite car.
I used to lend it to Linda. I used to lend a Jensen to Linda.
I was the only one that was
road.
allowed to drive it back then. It was my favorite car.
Our manager wasn't very happy about that, was he?
And Linda, you managed Rod too, didn't you? And you have a connection with Robert Fleischman, former lead singer of Journey. He auditioned for that band, Nightwatch.
2 weeks with us, yes.
He did? And Michael Bolton as well. So, you still didn't get a lead singer out of that audition process.
Rod wasn't happy with either of them.
Really? So what happened?
With those two?
Yeah.
Robert Fleischman, he had a great voice, Rod was he was depressed anyway. Rod had some problems, and Robert Fleischman was pretty down.
Okay.
And the two of them just
They weren't gelling with each
didn't
other.
work. We went into Boogie Motel and recorded Seasons with Robert Fleischman. And then Michael Bolotin, his name was Bolotin at the time. It wasn't Bolton. It was because the two guys in Rod's band, Nightwatch, Mo Potts, who's coming tonight.
Right, I look forward to
cool.
that.
Mark Toski, he's coming tonight. In fact, I'm probably going to be releasing the Nightwatch stuff soon.
Really?
It's from 1981,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So Mo and Danny Galino had played with Michael Bolton in his band. And Michael came down and spent 2 weeks at Rod's house. But when Rod left Foghat, he wanted it to be a democracy. He wanted the band to be a democracy. Everybody have a say in everything that we do. In retrospect, it wasn't a good idea, because he had been successful. The other guy, it was just a lot,
Yeah.
And I was a newbie at this anyway. Michael came in and he said, no, it's got to be me and Rod, everybody else is sidemen. He came in and wanting to do a whole different thing, and it just didn't gel. Rod was going through a really tough period at the time. He just couldn't find a singer that he was happy with.
Yeah. Now, I just realized you have a love for Joni Mitchell.
I do.
And
Did you see her on, oh my God.
I was going to ask you, I cried as well as I think the entire world did.
I cried.
Did you? You're tearing up right
I
now.
am. I was so, because I saw her at Newport. It was either I went to the Newport Jazz and Folk Festival in '69, and I saw her there. It's the first time I saw her, and this was the first time I cried through the whole thing. I mean, I just admire the hell out of her and when she said that she had to relearn, she had to watch YouTube videos of herself playing. What an amazing woman.
She had a stroke, right?
Yes.
She had a stroke.
She had a brain aneurysm, and they found her after a couple of days, right? Or a day, Yeah.
Just a crazy story. And they didn't think she would ever perform again.
Right.
So this surprise appearance this past summer at the Newport Folk Festival was, I mean, it had the world just literally.
I know, I just cried through the whole thing, I know.
So what was it like that time you saw her in 1969, the only other time she had played in Newport?
Listen, 1969, I was 18 years old, and I have to say, a lot of it's a blur.
Well, that's probably good, right? That's what you did in 69.
That's what you did in 69.
You took drugs?
I do remember a soggy sleeping bag. I do remember it rained, and I do remember parts of it.
All right, well, you got little blurbs of it. So I just thought it was so cool when I read that you're also a Joni Mitchell lover.
I was blown. In fact, I've turned you on to Joni Mitchell, to some of her stuff, because she doesn't have a drummer.
Oh.
Well, a lot of
What's wrong with that?
Like a lot of the stuff, the earlier stuff, there were no drums. Well, she doesn't have a drummer. So
To be fair, when I was growing up in England and riding my bike to school, my older brother, who's 4 years older than me, Colin, who was in Mungo Jerry, was a huge Johnny Cash fan. I would sing, and he didn't have a drummer either. So I would be riding my bike to school singing Johnny Cash songs that she loves you, big river, more than me. Well, I met her accidentally in St. Paul, Minnesota. But enough of that. Hold on a second. Stop it. But Johnny didn't have a drummer either, but I love Johnny Cash. Never got to meet him, unfortunately, but I listened to all his records, and he was a big influence on me. One of the reasons I became such a blues fan, because all Johnny's songs were they had a ring of truth about them. There was always a story. How high's the water, mama? 3 feet high and rising. That stuff, like, I don't know, just reached me. The same as like when I first heard Muddy Waters and all the early Elvis Presley stuff, which was great stuff, on Sun Records. It was had the ring of truth. It sounded real.
Yeah.
Instead of, what did we have in England? Hey nonny nonny, green sleeves. That's cruel, isn't it? Actually, Jeff Beck did a great version of Green Sleeves, so thank you, Jeff.
Now, you both have so much you have a lot going on that you oversee. You have Foghat Records, the wines. How is it managing everything? Merch? Like, do you do it? Well, I know Rose is your right-hand person.
Rose is my right hand. Rose is my right hand. I would be dead without Rose. Rose started working for me actually back in 1986 when I had my computer business.
Oh my gosh.
So we've been on and off, but she's been with us now with Foghat since 2007, I think. So 15 years, so I'd be dead without Rose. She's great. But yeah, we're both busy,
So you both have been married 17 years. Who made the first move? Where were you and what happened?
I think I got down on my knees and said, will you marry me? And she said, absolutely not.
So you went right into a proposal.
She said, first of all, you got to get your shit together.
We lived together for 8 years before we got married.
Yeah.
Right.
But, all right, so before you started living together, who made the first move?
I did.
You did. Where were you?
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
But he used to come and stay with me all the time. We were friends.
I would run away from with this horrible girlfriend I had.
Right. And they had split up.
I just wanted to suffer for my sins. But that's another story.
But he came to stay with me, and your father had just died.
Right.
My boyfriend had just died.
Oh.
In a plane crash. And
my God.
a couple of months before. And anyway, we started hanging out, but it was like at a different level we were talking for the first time. We'd been friends for a long time, but it was like trying to reconcile life, I guess, at that point. And we hung out a lot. I invited him to a wedding. A skydiver friend of mine was getting married. So he came to the wedding with me. My father was in the hospital at the time. So we went to visit my father.
We're still just friends.
Yeah, still just friends. Went to visit my father in the hospital, went to the wedding. We went to Atlantic City. And then my brother, who you'll meet tonight, he's our tour manager. My brother goes to visit my father, and my father says to Michael, "Did you meet Linda's new guy?" And Michael's like, "What new guy?" "That nice English fella, Roger." Michael's like, "Roger? That's just Roger. What are you talking about? That's just Roger. That's her friend." And then I go visit my father the next day, and I said, "You thought Roger was my guy?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "No, that's just Roger." He said, "Why isn't he your guy?" I said, "Because he's just Roger."
And we brought your dad some.
We brought him pasta
Bonjour.
And I said, "He's just Roger. We're just friends." Well, 3 days later, my father died suddenly in the hospital. And it kind of pushed us together. And I say to this day, if my father hadn't died, I don't know that we would have ended up together. I think that it was a gift that my father gave me. He gave me Roger.
I thought I'd ruined a perfectly good relationship.
I know. We were such good friends, really. We were always such good friends that I think we were both afraid of becoming more than friends, you know.
Yeah.
But I think with my father dying, it kind of pushed us together. And thank you, Dad.
So was it the words your father said that basically...
Why isn't he your guy? I said, "Because he's just Roger."
So then when Roger made the move, you're like, yeah, I guess.
We ended up together after Dad died, yeah. So then we ended up living together, and here we are.
And then my children were all upset. They said,
Louise, his oldest daughter in England, I've known her since she was 8. She's 15.
she used to come over and stay with me.
Yeah. And she was upset when she found out we were together because she thought he was going to hurt me or something. You know,
Well, I didn't have a particularly good
I
track
said,
record.
"Louise, we're grown-ups here. We know each other. He's, you know, we've both been around the block a few times." So we're not kids anymore, you know, so we know what we're getting into, you know, so we're fine.
Thank you for worrying, but we're good. We're good.
Yeah, they're coming up in a couple of weeks, you know, so they're great.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Roger, one word you always use to describe Linda.
The Holy Trinity.
Whatever you want.
She's my manager, my wife, and my best friend. Oh, and my girlfriend. It's more than the four,
It's more
isn't
than
it?
a trinity.
That's so
He
good.
tells everybody, he calls me the Holy Trinity. My wife, manager, and girlfriend.
Which you are.
I am.
You truly are.
Yeah.
And Linda, what do you think the one thing is that keeps your love so strong with each other?
I like him.
Oh, I like her.
I like him.
You know, she's a lot of fun to hang out with.
But I like.
Turn this off. I'll tell you a story. No, just kidding.
All right, we'll
I like him. You know, like Roger is a good guy. He's a good guy, and I've known that ever since I've known him. He's a good. There's not a mean bone in his body. You know, he's a good guy.
Unless somebody pisses me off.
Well, oh, me too. If somebody pisses it.
I can tell that.
Yeah, if somebody does the wrong thing.
Right.
But really, he's a good guy.
Well,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
thank you both so much, really. I mean, thank you for the 5+ decades, really to both of you, of the music that you've
Thank
given
you.
to
I've enjoyed this.
everyone.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this.
Oh,
Yeah, this is fun.
thank you. And really, just the fact that you both, I was just saying to the guys a little while ago, you're so blessed to be able to just continue this journey into music. And the fact that you said, it's not about the money, it's about the music.
It is. It is about the music. It's not about the money. It's about the music. He loves to play.
It's like, we've already started, recording and working on stuff. That's why, actually, there's so much fun with it, like since Scott has joined us. There's like, making music was always what it was always about. It wasn't about making it. Typical musicians, you play for free anyway. We do. It's terrible, and people take advantage of you.
Dean Castronovo of Journey, he said that to me one time too. He said I would do this for free if I needed to.
And I think the other thing is we know how fortunate we are, don't we?
Well, everybody in this band, all these guys, all four, they all love to play. None of them are just about money. None of them. And because we've both been around long enough that we wouldn't put up with any of that. I don't like drama. I don't like big egos. I used to tell Rod this, I don't care who you are. You might be a great guitarist, but that one's a great garbage man. That's a great secretary. That's a great waiter. Everyone in this world is great at something. Just because you were able to spend all those hours practicing and become a great guitarist doesn't make you any better than anybody else on this planet.
And also this
I don't buy into that.
This summer, airfares at the beginning of the year were like doubled and tripled. It was like crazy. I mean, all of a sudden you've got a $15,000 airfare bill, like to fly somewhere.
Crazy.
I mean, really crazy shit. So, well, we're going to be doing some driving. Everybody said, yeah, right. Renting
I was taking all
then, of
my
course,
time this year doing travel.
Yeah, and then renting vans, whereas they would be $500 or $600 a week, $2,500 a week for a van. So, which is is a little bit cheaper than like $15,000 in airfares and more. So we're driving like overnight in a van 500-600 miles like we used to when we were kids. Nobody moaned. Everybody said, "Well, I'll drive." "No, let me drive. Let me have a go." It was like everybody's there for the right reason.
There's no prima donnas.
We play music.
We have no prima donnas. And the thing is, this year it's been a challenge with travel. It really has. And even like when they had shows that were only like 2-hour flight or something, to try to get that flight, a lot of the airlines have stopped some of these. So that's been a real challenge this year. Travel has been a real challenge for me.
So you're kind of all getting back to the grassroots of the beginning of where this all came from, really.
It actually reminds me of a song. No, it's only rock and roll, but I like it. Like it. Yes, I do.
And yes, you do. And everyone can visit foghat.com for merch, tour info, wine info, right?
Right.
You have a great wine company that you're also
Foghat Cellars, right?
Owners of. So it's very, very cool. And guys, thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
This has
fun.
been fun.
This was fun.